noh, ma saan üle lava kõndida, super.
Hello everybody, welcome to Fotografiska, and tonight we are joined by the great Hungarian journalist Szabolcs Panyi, who will be interviewed by Holger Roonemaaga from Delfi Media.
But before we get to their conversation, we let into this room two guys who have all the reasons to hate Mr. Panyi. Please, Sergei Lavrov, current and eternal Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia.
And his sidekick, now former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Hungary, Péter Szijjártó.
Hello.
Hello, can I get you to Peter speaking?
Yes, I'm in St. Petersburg. Where are you?
I landed in Budapest already.
Just an hour ago.
Already.
Yeah.
You were on all headlines in the Russian media today.
Did I say something wrong?
No. They were just saying that you are pragmatically fighting for the interests of your country.
Oh, well, that's a very, let's say, nice, let's say, analysis of the situation.
Nice way to put it.
Yeah, and fair. And fair in the midnight.
And fair. Look, I am calling on the request of Alisher. And he just asked me to remind you that you were doing something about his sister.
Mrs. Ismailova?
Yes.
Absolutely. The thing is the following, that together with the Slovaks, we are submitting a proposal to the European Union to delist her. We will submit it next week, and as the new review period is going to be started, it's going to be put on the agenda, and we will do our best in order to get her off.
Thank you very much. He would really be pleased. He is seriously concerned about his sister, you can understand that.
I know.
And we highly appreciate your support and your fight for equality in all fields.
Oh, absolutely. Yesterday, there was a Foreign Affairs Council meeting, you know.
Yeah, I read your statements.
Yeah, and that was crazy, you know, when Gabrielius Landsbergis said that we contribute 12% of each rockets and missiles. You should, I said, my friend, you are not right, because the Europeans contribute much more. And I said, why? Because I said it's not only the Slovaks and us who are buying gas and oil from Russia directly, but all of you who are buying the same from them.
Absolutely.
In India, Kazakhstan, and let's make a list. Who is doing that, you know? Who is doing that, I said. And they were so...
Actually, the Americans are still buying some oil and gas from us.
Oh, no, not to speak about the nuclear fuel, my friend.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's obvious, and you know they said that we are putting danger on the Schengen area because you know.
Yeah, I know about this decision for the people who would like to come and work.
Yeah. Look, guys, there are more than 1 million Russians in the European Union. So stupid.
And there is a lack of labor in Europe, so it's idiotic. But I'm not speaking about Landsbergis, but my biggest disappointment is Joseph Borrell.
Oh,
it's absolutely terrible.
The European Biden.
Oh yes. So you said.
The European Biden, you know, he simply doesn't know where he is. He's simply unable to analyze the impact of what he says or what he does, you know.
Absolutely.
I mean, terrible.
You know when he was Minister of Spain.
Yeah, that was different.
He was more or less, you know, normal guy.
Absolutely.
Normal diplomat. But then some things happened to the people who have been evaluated from the national level to Brussels.
Yeah, you should not do that. You should not do that because you know there's this whole atmosphere sucks you in, and then you
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
I usually say that how you can understand this whole thing is the following: once you become a commissioner, and this is not going to be a joke. This is a regulation. Once you become a commissioner, you are not allowed to say the country I'm coming from. You are not allowed to say if you refer to your own country. The only way you are allowed to say is the following: the country I know the best. Okay?
Are you serious?
No, I'm really serious. This is a regulation.
Crazy.
So you can understand.
So you cannot name your country, but you must name your gender, right?
No, well, only in case it's not the traditional one, you know.
Oh my God, Peter.
Yeah.
It's very nice to talk to you, and I'm always available whenever you need me.
So am I.
And best regards to your family.
Thank you so much. I will definitely pass. And I have to tell you that being in this headquarter building of Gazprom was amazing.
Excellent. I'm glad you liked it.
I did. And especially I liked the agreement by way made with Miller. So that was even better.
Absolutely. He told me it was okay.
Okay, good. Then you got the report.
Thank you, my friend. All the best.
Of course, no problem. Always at your disposal.
Oh, have a good night. Bye. Thank you.
You too, Sergey. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, so as a small break between the important conversations between the two foreign ministers, I will talk to my friend for almost 10 years and that close colleague Szabolcs Panyi. And we worked on a lot of investigations together, including actually on the stories that we made based on those transcripts and phone calls that you will be hearing today. But Szabolcs, maybe it's a naive question, but like, what makes this phone call that we just heard so special?
Well, I think you heard it all. It's not just the content, but it's the tone, like how these two people are talking to each other, and especially that, you know, when someone hears it, when I first heard it and read it, I thought, you know, this is fiction. You know, someone is like drawing these characters, these almost cartoon characters that we're hearing, but this is real life. And I think that the real impact was because of the audio part that we published, because that's where you can hear how these two people are in a very special relationship where, you know, as it was said, there's Lavrov and his sidekick Szijjártó. So this is like a very uneven relationship. Of course, you know, political analysts, journalists, foreign policy experts describe that this relationship that evolved throughout the 16 years of Viktor Orbán's rule and throughout the almost 10 years of Péter Szijjártó's tenure as foreign minister, it's a very uneven relationship. Like Hungary became extremely dependent on Russia. But when you hear these gestures, when you hear the voices of the two foreign ministers that represents, you know, everything, that's just, you know, completely different, because it makes it very directly understandable what kind of dependency has been developed throughout these 16 years.
Yeah, I mean, in this one single phone call, we can hear the two men talking with each other about like how to get a close relative of Alisher Usmanov, one of the most prominent business leaders in Russia. He would sue us if he would name him, identify him as an oligarch. How to get Usmanov's sister out of sanctions. But on the other hand, as well, we can see them like gossiping, making fun, making jokes. We can pay attention to the tone. You've been investigating Hungarian Orban's elites and then the Kremlin elites connections for like 10 years, 15 years. But still, like when you first heard and read those phone calls, like what was it that like surprised you the most out of this?
Yeah, you're right. So I've been investigating Russian influence in Hungary for more than a decade now. And the first conversation that I became aware of was one from 2020, where Peter Szijjártó was basically asking Lavrov to help arrange a visit for the then Slovak Prime Minister Peter Pellegrini to Moscow to help boost Pellegrini's pro-Russian credentials, because that was important for the Slovak electorate to show him more pro-Russian than he was perceived back in those days. And basically, there was this love triangle between the populist, pro-Russian Slovak government, the Hungarian government, and Russia, of course. And we've heard these phrases from Viktor Orban and his minions for almost 10 years, that they are the sovereignists, that they are against any kind of foreign influence, that they are fighting Western countries that are trying to meddle Hungarian elections. And then I read this conversation where Hungary and Russia were plotting to interfere in the Slovak elections and to help the then government getting re-elected. It was quite shocking, and especially there was this bit that Peter Szijjártó was explaining that it is in the interest of the right-wing, far-right nationalist Hungarian government that the Slovak Nationalist Party, which became an entity in Slovak politics on an anti-Hungarian platform, that it's very important for Hungary that this anti-Hungarian party makes it into the Slovak parliament, because they were the junior coalition member to Pellegrini's government. And it was very obvious that this is against Hungarian interest. This is against the interest of a Hungarian state. But of course, it is in the interest of this whole European illiberal pro-Kremlin network that has, developed throughout this past decade.
We will talk about the larger context around all of this in a later segment. But I think I will need to ask you something that's been asked from me quite often, and I'm curious to hear your answer. But how do we get material or information like this? And I don't expect you even to identify your source or something like that, but more to kind of walk us through the amount of work that it takes to eventually get to information like this and to be able to publish it.
Right. So I've been investigating Peter Szijjártó and his behavior for a very long time now. Back in 2022, I revealed how Russia hacked the Hungarian Foreign Ministry, and that its minister, Peter Szijjártó, basically did very little to investigate and to mitigate this Russian hacking by the GRU and the SVR. It was already back then quite suspicious why the minister doesn't care about his ministry being thoroughly infiltrated by Russian hackers. And then not that later after that, that was the first time when I obtained certain information about Lavrov and Szijjártó's conversations, and that's when I realized that there may be other conversations out there, transcripts mostly. The thing is that, especially since the full-scale invasion, it's quite obvious that European intelligence agencies, Western intelligence agencies, they are trying to tap into the conversations of Kremlin officials, or just the Russian diplomats at the embassies. So there are many recorded conversations out there in vaults, but when it gets very sensitive is when it's not two Russians talking to each other, but when on the other end of the line, it's Peter Szijjártó or a Hungarian official or a Slovak official. And then it becomes extremely sensitive, because then suddenly the intelligence that's being gathered by a NATO country, it also includes a fellow NATO ally who, throughout the conversation, doesn't really act like a NATO ally, like we've heard in this conversation. So this is extremely sensitive. So our little project, when we published so far two episodes of this investigation into the Lavrov Szijjártó phone calls, this was done by a consortium of journalists, where you yourself and Delfi Estonia, Delfi Media was included. We also had the Insider, this Russian exiled opposition outlet, on board. We had the investigative center of Jan Kuciak, and we had We Square Front Story, a Polish outlet. Did I leave something?
I think that's a full list, yeah.
That's the full list, yeah. So basically, we had a bunch of really great journalists with their own sources, which covers, I guess, most of Europe. And, you know, like everyone put their sources and everyone put their material that they obtained from their sources in this big hat that became the material for this investigation. So obviously, for source protection reasons, we cannot specify where these material are coming from, but it's coming from different sources.
And before we can pass the microphone on to the foreign ministers again, just like journalistically, technically a question, but like, how do we know it's real? Because that's the first question that I'm asked often as well. But how do you know it's real?
Right. So actually, that was one of the biggest challenges. Like, you know, you obtain a transcript. Okay, how do you prove that, you know, this is real? So first of all, back in 2024, I already published together with the Investigative Center of Jan Kuciak from Slovakia an article based on the Slovak story that I briefly mentioned. We did not reveal back in those days that we have a full transcript of the conversation. We were just referring to intelligence material, I think. And after publishing and before publishing that story, basically the Hungarian Foreign Ministry and Péter Szijjártó, they confirmed that, you know, that's what happened. That Hungary was asked by the Slovak Prime Minister to act as an intermediary to arrange a Moscow visit to help the re-election chances. And when we obtained these other material, obviously we reached out for comment. We did not receive any reply. That's how the Hungarian Foreign Ministry used to operate. It has a new leadership, I think, from today. And also we went to some forensic audio analysts who analyzed the audio to see if it's a deep fake, to see if it's manipulated or not. So we did a lot of effort to prove that it's real. Obviously, we knew that our sources are reliable and it's coming from reliable sources. They're not going to trick us. But the funniest part was that when we published the investigations, the Hungarian Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó, he acknowledged that, yeah, that was me. That was the conversation. There's nothing to see here. It's just normal diplomacy. So that was the reaction after the first episode that we published. And then we published the second episode, and the reaction was again the same. Yeah, that's me. I see nothing wrong with that.
So I think it's a good time to continue listening to the normal diplomacy.
Right, and the most interesting thing was that the forensic audio analysts, I think in some occasions they were not entirely sure if the audio is fully, you know, real, because there were some distortions. But it seems that it didn't matter in the end of the day because one of the counterparts of the conversation acknowledged it. And I think later also Zakharova or someone from some spokesman, or what is Peskov, I don't know which one of them, yeah. They also acknowledged that these conversations are real.
This next phone call took place on the 2nd of July 2024. In this next phone call, Lavrov and Szijjártó discuss one document. According to one high-level EU official, it's 99% sure that the mentioned document is the framework for sanctions, which was already public.
Yes, but why did Lavrov want the document he could easily get anyway? Well, according to one senior Western intelligence official, Lavrov may simply have been testing the limits of how far Szijjártó is willing to go in providing information. I quote, "It sounds like a loyalty test to assess the willingness to follow orders or his ability to carry out tasks. Sounds like recruitment."
Hello.
Sergey, my dear friend, this is Peter speaking.
Yes, Peter. How are you?
Sorry to disturb you. I'm fine. Thank you so much. I hope I'm not disturbing you too much. I understand you are on your way to the airport, right?
Not yet. I'm leaving in 15 minutes, but you never disturb me. Don't apologize.
I really do appreciate it, Sergei. I'm calling you because my prime minister has visited Kiev today to talk to Zelensky. And he was discussing many issues. I will brief you on that, of course, but mostly on the EU presidency. And he has the following question. There is going to be a NATO summit next week, and there was this meeting with Zelensky today. Whether it would be possible that President Putin would receive him anywhere in Russia. Prime Minister is absolutely flexible when it comes to location later this week, preferably on Thursday, because he would like to discuss with him what can be a consequence of that meeting in Kiev. And, I think it would be great to talk to them on the run upon the NATO summit. Whether it would be possible, that would be the question.
I will talk to the president. I will see him tomorrow. The issue with Thursday is difficult because Wednesday and Thursday we are in Kazakhstan.
Oh, you are in Kazakhstan?
For the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. But I will see the president tomorrow and I will raise this issue and we will come back to you.
Sergei, you are so kind. And I mean, if he comes back to Russia Thursday late, it's fine with PM. Or Friday morning is absolutely fine as well. Because on Friday afternoon, we will have to be in Azerbaijan for the Turkic organization countries. So, I mean, Friday morning would also be great.
I have to talk to him. You know how these multilateral events are being planned.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can plan and then it's delayed and I will come back to you tomorrow. And one clarification. Is Prime Minister going to talk to the President as Prime Minister of Hungary or as a chair of European Union?
I think we cannot divide the two. But I think that it increases significance that he is the chair of European Union. But we are not those kind that we forget about where we are coming from.
I know. That's why I asked. Look, I wanted also to call and check about your compromise you reached with European Union on opening of the negotiations for Ukraine on accession. And there were reports that the decisive role was played by the language of national minorities.
Absolutely, it was the case.
We are trying to get hold of the exact document, but...
I will send it to you. It's not a problem.
Because what was reported, that the language says that Ukraine must respect the rights of all national minorities.
Absolutely. This is the case. You know my position when it comes to national minorities. Although, of course, I'm standing for the Hungarians, but there can't be a discrimination. Because if there is a discrimination against one, tomorrow there might be a discrimination against another one.
Exactly as we discussed with you some time ago.
Absolutely.
Okay, Peter. If you can send me the document, I would appreciate this.
I immediately do it. I send it to my embassy in Moscow, and my ambassador will forward it to your chief of staff, and then it's at your disposal.
Thank you very much. And on the possible meeting between President and Prime Minister, I'll call you back tomorrow.
Thank you so much. And Sergei, once again, Friday is also workable as well.
I understand. All the best. Until tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Sergei. Thank you so much. Bye.
So, Szabolcs, do you want to comment with a few words what makes this clip so important, or what stands out for you here?
Right. I mean, I think there are three things here. One is that I don't know how many of you have followed what happened back in that summer. Was it
24?
24. So Hungary was assuming the rotating presidency of the European Union, and behind the back of the EU and NATO allies, Viktor Orbán, through Szijjártó and Lavrov, organized a trip to Moscow, and it was quite controversial because Orbán had basically no authorization to speak on behalf of the EU when he travels to Moscow. And from this conversation, we know that the Russians were basically taking advantage of this situation. And when Orbán arrived to Moscow, basically Putin greeted him as the president of the EU or whatever. And obviously, all the real leaders of the EU were very fast condemning and saying that Orbán is not speaking on behalf of the EU. So it was an important event for Putin that he tried to legitimize himself, showing Orbán as a representative of the European Union who's traveling to Moscow to speak with him. Also, it's important in this conversation that there's a NATO summit coming up. And Orbán wants to consult with Putin before the NATO summit, which in itself is quite interesting. And then, obviously, there is the issue with the minorities. So, Hungary has a diaspora living in Western Ukraine, and officially, the minority rights, the language rights of the Hungarian minority in Ukraine were used as a pretext for the Orbán government to try to block all kinds of first high-level Ukraine-NATO talks, then Ukraine's Western integration, NATO-EU accession procedure. And it was quite obvious for me for a very long time, and I already investigated this issue, that this is, sorry, but bullshit. The Orbán government never really cared about, the Hungarian minorities. This was basically a coordination with Russia to come up with an issue that can be used legitimately by this right-wing nationalist government in Hungary, why it's blocking Ukraine's EU accession, the minority rights. But from this conversation, it's quite obvious. Lavrov is referring to a previous conversation on the minority rights in Ukraine, that it has been all along coordinated with Russia. And Russia was basically using, again, Hungary as a pawn, as a proxy in sabotaging Ukraine's EU accession, but also in fighting for the minority rights of one minority, which can also be then be advantageous to another minority, the Russian minority.
Let's also talk about you for a little bit. But all through these specific stories, you needed to work while there was a criminal investigation into you in Hungary. I think it was a week or maybe 2 weeks before we started working on those specific stories. The Orbán's regime announced that they will start an investigation into you, accusing you of spying for Ukraine. Estonia is number 3. We fell one place in the World Press Freedom Index, most recently announced. So for us, it's quite like an unknown situation, to say it mildly, to have the state investigate a journalist because of the work they are doing. But what does it mean for a journalist to continue working under such circumstances?
Right. So, I mean, in Hungary, I think the biggest obstacle for myself and also for a number of other investigative journalists was surveillance. My phone was hacked with the Israeli Pegasus spyware back in 2019, but already by then I was under surveillance from time to time since I think at least 2016, 2017, and that obviously continued throughout the years. Listen, the biggest problem has always been that the Hungarian state, the government, was trying to identify our sources. Who are those people who are leaking information to us, who are providing us with documents that prove corruption or wrongdoing? It's quite obvious that they need to come up with a legal basis for the surveillance. And in the case of a journalist, I mean, it's very hard to accuse us of being like drug dealers or terrorists. So the only thing left is to accuse us of being, spies or being suspected of espionage. When I was surveilled with the Pegasus spyware back in 2019, I already managed to find out through, informally talking to sources that the legal basis was the suspicion that I'm a spy for the CIA, that I'm an American agent. And it seems that throughout the years, my status deteriorated, sorry for that, so much that in this past couple of months, I was accused of being a Ukrainian spy. So probably I got fired by the CIA and got hired by the SBU, or I don't know, whichever, or HUR. So the other issue has been the smear campaigns. So there have been many smear campaigns, not just against me, but other outlets as well. My former Hungarian outlet, Direct 36, published last year an hour-long documentary into the lavish lifestyle of Viktor Orbán's family and how they built a business empire. And the government already back then accused my former outlet of being financed by Ukraine. What had nothing to do with Ukraine, but there has to be a legal basis so that the intelligence services can surveil us. And as you said, I guess in Estonia that's quite it would be quite scandalous. I don't know what would be the consequences if it turned out that you're surveilled by your own country's.
I hope we'll never find out.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, I don't want to talk too much. But the thing in Hungary is that they are both surveilling journalists, but at the same time we're getting tipped off. It's been revealed, like not immediately, but very soon, that we're under surveillance. So it's like a wannabe dictatorship, but also too sloppy to have the ability to ever become a dictatorship.
But still, you needed to at least like temporarily leave Hungary, and then you moved to another country just to be able to continue working. But do you feel like this pressure on you somehow like put some like self-censorship into you, or did it change the way how you approach the topics?
No. I'm the type of person who's if I'm getting pressured, then I'm getting very angry, and that just gives me an extra motivation. And this was the case in this investigation. Yeah, you're right. So I had to leave the country, but it was not because of the Hungarian authorities. I received some warnings from friendly sources that a certain other country that's involved in this relationship is very interested in what kind of material I have. And because I'm working for a Polish outlet, Polish nonprofit investigative site, I was finishing together with you and my colleagues this investigation from Warsaw.
And what's the status now? I understand that the criminal investigation against you has been dropped, but like, did they ever question you? How did they inform you of ending the investigation without any charges?
Yeah, so it usually went during the Orbán years in Hungary that they started accusing not just journalists but critics, political opposition, activists, human rights lawyers, etc., of all kinds of crimes. And in my case, it was espionage, but there were some less fortunate people who were accused of, I don't know, pedophilia, domestic violence, so really, really nasty things. And this was like the modus operandi of the Orbán smear campaign, to first rhetorically accuse the critic of the regime of some serious crimes, and then press criminal charges. But actually these charges never went anywhere, because obviously all of us were innocent. But by the time the news cycle moved on, no one really cared that there was no investigation or the charges were dropped. And in my case, what happened is that my phone started exploding with messages saying that did you hear what was said at the government press conference? And I was like, no, I was sleeping. And I was told that the chief of staff of Orbán accused me of being a Ukrainian spy and that they are pressing criminal charges. And I was like, wow, okay. But then it turned out that the prosecutors then passed this request to the police, and then the police said that we're gonna deliberate for 30 days to see if we should start an investigation or not. and we were like 2 weeks before the election. So the police were just sitting out the election and they wanted to see who wins and then act accordingly. And when Viktor Orbán's regime lost in a landslide, then the police didn't even open an investigation. So they said that there's nothing to investigate here. There's no proof.
We know that all throughout the Orban years, press freedom in Hungary was greatly suffocated, starting with a public broadcaster, buying up commercial or private media by people or oligarchs close to Orban, and then so on. So how do you see the way back to press freedom now, and how difficult will it be to actually change the scene regardless of a new government?
Right. So Viktor Orbán came to power in 2010, and first he started occupying the public media, and then gradually, year by year, more and more outlets were taken over and turned into propaganda. The problem is that already by 2010, big tech companies, social media, they disrupted the media industry so much that basically when Orbán came to power, it was an already weakened independent media. Financially, the foundations were shaken because all the advertisement money was sucked away by Google and Facebook. And it's even worse now. So although the political pressure is off and although the propaganda empire of Orbán is collapsing, but the problem is that at the same time, it's not just Meta and Google anymore, but it's also AI and Google's AI summaries and everything that's basically killing the news business. So I'm very optimistic that there's not going to be political pressure anymore on journalism. But at the same time, the world has moved on. The media market changed so much that even though now we can operate freely, but what I expect is actually that there's going to be outlets collapsing because of financial reasons. So we got back our freedom, but at the same time, we're just going bankrupt.
Okay, maybe time for a phone call.
The next phone call took place on the 16th of August, 2025, just a day after Trump and Putin met in Alaska.
Hello.
Hello, Sergey. It's Peter speaking.
Yes. How are you, Peter?
Sorry for calling you. It must be very late now in Moscow already.
No, it's only 9:30.
But you had a very long day, I understand. Very, very demanding.
Well, the longer the day, the longer we live.
God, that's right. That's right. I just wanted to congratulate because I understand there was some success. I see how concerned our European friends are. But I just wanted to make sure that you know that Hungary supports all kind of efforts and all kind of achievements you have reached today.
Yes, we appreciate the statement by the Prime Minister. And this was very straightforward statement. And I believe this is something which other Europeans should take note of.
They usually do, and then they put it in the framework of financial sanctions against us. So that's how they do it. But can I ask you, Sergey, whether the meeting went well, as it is being portrayed in the media?
The president stated very clearly that it was a very useful and successful summit during the joint press conference. And then Trump made a separate interview to the Fox News where he said all the right things, that on a scale of 10, he would give this summit a 10. And that the progress was very considerable. There is one or two issues, as he said, and that now is the turn for Zelensky to take the deal. That's exactly what was discussed, and he accepted this sequence. We'll see what is the result of Zelensky's visit on Monday to Washington.
And can I ask you whether you have made any forward progress on economic cooperation with Americans to restart your economic and trade relationship, because
It was not discussed, Peter.
it was not discussed. Aha, okay.
No.
Okay, so economy was not on the agenda.
It is the issue which was discussed in the past, and it was very clearly stated by the Americans that if they can get Ukraine out of the way, there would be no limits.
No limits. Aha. Okay. But can we consider it more or less sure that as long as these encouraging negotiations are going on, the Americans will not implement any other sanctions?
We did not discuss sanctions.
Oh, you didn't discuss it at all?
No. There was a very friendly conversation on many things, including, some just absolutely personal matters, not related to any politics. But on Ukraine, we clearly explained, and I think Trump got the essence of it, when he stated in the interview to the Fox News that a long-standing sustainable peace is much better than a ceasefire.
Yeah.
That's our position.
Yeah. So root causes must be tackled.
Absolutely.
And you think now the Americans have a deeper understanding? Because I remember when President Trump came into office, he was very, let's say, encouraged about the quick resolution of the situation. But now they understand it better, that it's not just about, cutting it.
No, we did not discuss it. But some time ago, he said that when he stated that he would resolve it in 24 hours, he was mistaken. No, we did not discuss this, Peter.
Yeah, okay. I understood.
Basically, the presidents made a very detailed presentation at their joint press conference.
Yeah, that's good. If it was like that as it was discussed, then it's great. Because do you know, there was a debrief for the EU ambassadors in Brussels today. And I did not feel that the Europeans would be very happy, And that's how I felt that things might have gone well.
Well, our purpose was to consider realistic ways of ending the war and not to please European ambassadors.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I agree.
We know that our friends like Viktor Orban and yourself and Robert Fico understand us, and for the rest, it's up to them to decide whether they are grown-ups or still immature politicians.
Yeah, that's right. Great. But the fact that the lunch didn't take place, it's not a signal of bad mood or disappointment between the two of you?
What didn't take place?
The lunch. Together. Because the American leftist media was speaking a lot about, the lunch didn't take place after the meeting.
No, but the press conference was joined. It was never cancelled. And the lunch is not something which I would really like, knowing the American gastronomic art.
I see. Okay. So you were not inspired.
Absolutely.
Okay, I see. Well, that's great. Sergei, please reassured that we definitely are backing the whole thing. And here we try to avoid any steps in Brussels which would undermine the procedure in the upcoming days.
We appreciate this, Peter, and thank you very much for the call.
And thank you so much for taking my call.
All the best.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Szabolcs, I know that. I know that contrary to Lavrov, you actually are quite fond of the American gastronomical art.
I am, and you know, we've been together for almost a year in the U.S. That's where we met. I actually like Tex-Mex food, so not just American food, but Mexican.
Okay, but today we've been like hearing the conversations between two really prominent members of both from both countries. But help us like understand throughout the same like 16 years, like why did the relationship between not only the two men but the two ruling elites of the two countries develop like so deep? Was it because of money? Was it because of actual ideological alignment? Was it because of like the actual need for it, necessity, or like why did it develop so deep?
Yeah, just for context, it's important to know, and I guess a lot of people in the audience know this very well, that Viktor Orban, he started out as a anti-Russian, anti-Soviet liberal guy. And actually the low point in Hungarian-Russian relations were during Viktor Orban's first government between 1998 and 2002. And throughout his years in opposition in the 2000s, he was very vocally criticizing Russia. But then when he came to power, it all changed. And this is something that a lot of people want to understand what happened. And I've also been investigating this, and I already published some of my findings, but I'm going to come out with a book about Russian influence in Hungary later this year. And to me, it seemed that Viktor Orban just took over those corrupt structures that were already there in Hungary, a country that was always reliant on Russian energy and all kinds of business deals with Russia, mostly concerning gas, oil, and nuclear. And his inner circle and his party benefited from this relationship. I think it's important to understand that Hungary, it's a small country. It's just one of those formerly Soviet-occupied countries, which became officially independent, but Russian influence never ceased to exist because the former communist elite, the former communist intelligence, businessmen who had connections with Russia, they all remained somehow in position or returned to position. And just in the case of Bulgaria or formerly Ukraine or Georgia these days, Russia is always using the same tactics to corrupt and to capture the local elites. So there's nothing Hungary specific in this. And we've seen with the example of Viktor Orban, who started out as an anti-Russian and ended up as the Kremlin's Trojan horse in the EU, that this type of Russian influence, it's also crossing political party families, regardless of being a social democrat like Gerhard Schröder in Germany or being right wing like Viktor Orban. Russia always, or in many cases, have found a way to capture the local elites. So it's corruption usually. There's also compromat used in some cases, and of course there are things that we still don't know. A lot of people say that once the Putin regime is over, and once the archives in the Kremlin are open, that's when we're gonna know how deep this influence, how deep this infiltration in Hungary and in other countries were.
Perhaps some of the archives in Hungary are also starting to open up actually now. But now that Peter Magyar won the elections and then he's in office, what kind of change will actually take place in the next years? Is it like we are all like euphoric right now, like we are thinking that Hungary has been saved? Like, do you share that optimism, or like what are the obstacles actually on the way?
I think what we've heard in these conversations, the most disturbing thing was this deep illoyalty towards Hungary's NATO and EU allies. On the surface, officially, Hungary was obviously a member of NATO and EU, but we knew very well that the leadership of the country is an ally of the Kremlin. So that has stopped. and we're going to be fine in that regard. So Hungary is already gravitating very quickly back into the Western alliance, but it will take time until all the Russian agents are sent home from Hungary, and until this whole corrupt system is dismantled. Hungary is still reliant on Russian energy, and although we're also required to phase it out pretty soon, but for obvious reasons, we know very well that Russia is not letting a country off the hook so easily. Just because a pro-Kremlin government is defeated, it doesn't mean that Russia is not looking for other ways to infiltrate the country. I'm pretty pessimistic in a way that one of the topics that we together have been investigating are these so-called sabotage attacks and hybrid warfare that Russia has been waging in the Baltic countries or Poland or Germany. Obviously, they have spared Hungary so far because it was considered as a friendly country, but not anymore. So I'm actually bracing for cyber attacks against Hungarian institutions, ransomware attacks, also other types of sabotage operations that we've seen in this part of Europe. I'm pretty sure, again, the modus operandi of the Russians is pretty much same everywhere, that this is going to happen in Hungary. So we will have a more tense security situation. But at the same time, what the next government needs to do, and I think will do, is, for example, starting to expel Russian diplomats, because so far that has been not really happening, besides one or two diplomats that have been expelled since 2022. And we also need to do something with those companies and those structures that were benefiting from oil trade, gas trade. Hungary still has a long-term gas contract with Gazprom. It's not going to be easy to get off the hook, and the Russians will do everything to try to blackmail and pressure the new government in that regard.
One thing that I'm concerned about is the hangover effect, that people in Hungarian people expect a lot of fast change to the better. But usually in situations like this, fast change doesn't come, and then the change always isn't instantly so much better or noticeably better. Do you see the risk of what happened in Slovakia, for example, that Robert Fico returning to power already in a matter of years after being defeated in elections?
Yeah, internationally, it's usually the example of Slovakia that is being referenced quite a lot. Robert Fico has actually returned twice after his, he was defeated once, then he returned, he was defeated again, he returned again. So yeah, there's this type of hangover effect. But also in Hungarian history, what makes our democratic transition in 1989, 1990 really unique is that just 4 years after our first free election, the former Communist Party, rebranded as a Social Democratic Party, was voted back into power, and together with the Liberal Party, they had a supermajority in parliament. So people tend to forget pretty quickly, but I think the biggest difference between current Hungary and Slovakia, or current Hungary and Hungary of the early 90s, is that so far it seems that Viktor Orban's power structure and his party are collapsing. Also, their voter base was pretty old. So just by the laws of biology, in 4 years they will have a couple of hundreds of thousands less voters. So currently, it doesn't seem to me that Orban or his minions could come back to power. But of course, there could be a very chaotic period. And obviously, after having one prime minister for 16 years, dominating politics for 36 years, because actually Orban has been doing that, I'm pretty sure that it's not going to happen anymore. We're going to be a quarreling, a bit chaotic democracy. But I think if we're just going to have the problems of a regular democracy, I would be still very happy with that.
And before we allow the ministers to wrap up this, or almost wrap up the event, before we open also the floor to Q&A, can you tell us a little bit of how Peter Siarto is doing right now? Because we know that the criminal investigation against you was dropped, and I don't think there is yet a criminal investigation into him. But what has his life been after the elections?
Well, it was actually quite interesting because on election night he was nowhere to be seen. So Peter Siarto was one of the faces of Orban's campaign, but he disappeared. He was not on stage, and there was a lot of speculation where he is. And then I think the next day or after the next day, it was reported that he was shredding documents at the foreign ministry. He was dressed up in some sweatpants. It's not very uncharacteristic of him, so he does that. But basically, he was not really appearing in public for a couple of days. Then he gave an interview a couple of days later where he seemed quite stressed. He was confronted by a couple of tough questions, like why did his wife make $1.5 million in dividends from a company that doesn't even have a website and stuff like that. He seems surprised. So the thing is that his reputation is quite damaged, partly thanks to our investigation, but also besides his ties to Lavrov and Russia, there are some very serious corruption issues around him. And Prime Minister Péter Magyar already during the campaign and after he won the election made it clear that they will very thoroughly investigate Peter Siarto's conduct with the Russians. And personally, I would be extremely surprised if he would be in Hungary in 2 years or 3 years.
So perhaps in Russia, but let's let the ministers continue.
This next phone call took place on the 24th of June 2023, on the exact same day that Wagner turned their tanks onto Moscow.
Hello. I just wanted to know if things are under control and that you are okay.
Absolutely under control. The president has said everything that was needed. Don't worry, we will keep it quiet.
Have you stopped Wagner's advance towards Moscow?
The army is in control. I don't follow the events live. The army knows perfectly well what to do.
So these are just fake news that the president and prime minister have left Moscow.
These news have been debunked hours ago already. Don't worry and don't believe what the social media is saying.
Are the Wagner in Voronezh and Rostov?
I don't follow everything from hour to hour. The army is on the ground and they have all the capabilities and knowledge on what to do.
So you personally are completely fine?
Absolutely. More than fine.
Well, if you ever need anything personally, just let me know.
I don't need anything. There is no problem. Thank you for calling.
Oh, thank you for accepting my call.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you, Mr. Lavrov.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Peter.
And say hi to your family.
I will. Say hi to your family as well.
Yes, I will say Uncle Lavrov said hi.
Yes.
And now we are going off the script.
Very much.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
But now is the time to open up for questions. If anyone has any, not for us, hopefully, but to them.
So if you any of you have a question, just raise your hand and I will come with the microphone. Yep, there's one.
I have a lot of questions. Hello, I have a lot of questions, but I mean, one thing you talked about was just the verification aspect of journalistic material, and I mean, it just seems like it's going to be in one sense, more difficult, increasingly difficult going forward because of AI and everything, and how easy it is. I mean, you mentioned that the OSINT experts were even not 100% sure. So just like, how does that change the picture for journalistic verification going forward? And then maybe also if you could talk a little bit about how I mean, the focus was very much on Siarto, but like in what sense was it like? I mean, he looks like a Russian spy, based on everything that's been talked about. But in what sense were him and Orban kind of completely in cahoots, or like streamlined on these issues? Thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to start with the second question because I think that's the most important one, and we haven't touched upon that. So Peter Szijjártó, he has just been executing Viktor Orbán's foreign policy. And this is something that also people working for Orbán told me, that everything is coming from the top. So it's not Peter Szijjártó freelancing or having any kind of illegitimate relationship with Lavrov. I mean, not that type, but other illegitimate type of relationship with Russia. But basically what he's been doing was at the orders of Orbán and with the knowledge of Orbán. So basically Szijjártó was the operational level, but the strategic level was the relationship between Orbán and Putin, and whatever was decided and the biggest secrets, those were during the Orbán-Putin one-on-one meetings in the Kremlin or in Budapest. So it's like a complete harmony between Orbán and Szijjártó. And what also made, and this was not in a question, but I think it's also important to understand that Peter Szijjártó has been foreign minister of Hungary since autumn 2014. So for over a decade. And also Lavrov has been in his position for an even longer time. So these two had more than a decade to befriend themselves, to develop this type of relationship. And this is what also makes it very special, because in more democratic countries, usually governments and foreign ministers are not in charge for such a long time, and they also don't have the time to develop this type of very close personal relationship with each other. Regarding the first question, yeah, it's going to be a huge problem how you verify these type of audio recordings. In our case, what we could do is obviously also ask around other sources. So there were cases when multiple sources were aware of the same conversation, so they could confirm that we also have this. But also just going through the content of the conversation, they are mentioning meetings, they are referring to conversations. For example, I think you can recall how it was with Gabrielius Landsbergis, right? That I think we reached out to him.
We reached out to Landsbergis to just get his view of the kind of like debate or fight that he had with Szijjártó in Brussels. But like we wanted to understand if Landsbergis can confirm what Szijjártó was telling to Lavrov, or like how they were like gossiping about him, and that he did confirm. But about like verification or like technical verification about audio clips like this, I think that right now we are in a like technological or like software development where the guys working on such verification tools know what they are doing, but the technology hasn't caught up exactly yet. But maybe the underlying technology is there, but we don't know yet how to implement it in like all the different circumstances that can be. For example, in our case, like these are not like regular conversations to verify. If it would be like a regular recording, we are sitting here, we are recording this interview, it would be easy to verify if it's authentic, if it has been manipulated, how it has been manipulated, and so on. But we don't know the devices that were used to tap the phone calls. We don't know which side was tapped. Like the sound levels of different speakers coming in are different. So there are like all types of these like unknowns that matter and what verification tools cannot take into account. But we did have a very good verification partner in the end. They asked us not to identify them yet because they have not come out in totally in the public about it. But
and they also don't want to get hacked by the Russians, I guess.
Yeah, probably for their own, they didn't want too much personal attention to this. And as far as we understand through background the checks, that they are actually the cutting edge of this technology right now. So they did a really detailed, thorough report based on the 3 or 4 bits of audio recordings that we gave them, and we did get a really official, firm confirmation that they are technically also legit.
You said before that maybe they start to expel Russian diplomats or take distance from Russia, but since Hungary until now has saved herself from high energy prices, if it does this, that means that energy prices will be much more bigger, like in the rest of Europe, so they will have big financial problems like the rest of Europe. So how do you think they can cope with this? Maybe it's a big problem.
Well, the outgoing Orban government, they put a price cap on fuel, which means that it's not the population that's being hurt by the high prices, but the state budget and also some companies involved. But you are right. This is one of the main blackmailing tools of Russia energy that they can use. And what's very worrying, and I did not mention this when we were talking about what to expect, under the new government, is that Vladimir Putin already, I think before the election or maybe shortly after the election, mentioned that that somehow the supply of Russian energy is tied to the government continuing its foreign policy. So it was like a very thinly veiled blackmail that he issued, and you are right, especially in this situation with Iran, Strait of Hormuz being closed, etc. Unfortunately, the new Hungarian government will have to take that into account, that Russia can actually blackmail us with energy, at least this year. Any other questions?
Yeah, hi. I'm Haris Puusen from Estonian Internal Security Service. Just wondering about your experience with journalists from other countries that were mentioned in your conversation. Like, what are you seeing from their side? Are there others in these countries who are able to come up to bring out stories like you did, or have the Russian influence or the power inside that country have been more successful in bringing down the investigative report's ability to bring it out?
Yeah, I mean, there are multiple countries. I mean, if we're in the European Union or okay, yeah. I mean, it's not easy, especially when you're under surveillance as a journalist, to obtain this type of very sensitive information and to publish it. But my experience is, and I'm mostly working with, and I mostly like to work. Sorry for any Western Europeans in the audience. I mostly like to work with fellow journalists from the former post-Soviet or post-socialist bloc, because although we speak different languages, but at the same time we have very similar historic experiences, and especially when it comes to Russia's role. But I think that Ukrainian journalists, for example, are doing an extremely hell of a job under very hard conditions. Exiled Russian journalists are also publishing some very great stories about the GRU, the SVR, and their operations abroad almost every month. Also journalists in Slovakia and other countries where Russian influence is quite heavy are doing good work. Serbia, but Hungary's case was I think very unique because we were under pressure, we were surveilled, but we were never facing like physical threats from our own governments, at least. So it was never realistic that we could get jailed or we could get beaten up or we could get, I don't know, murdered. It was never the case in Hungary. So also for me, I could take bigger risks because of that, because I knew that, at least physically, I'm not in danger, unlike, journalists in Slovakia, for example. So I think in that regard, journalism in Hungary was also a bit unique.
I would like to give a shout out especially to our colleagues in Moldova who are super brave in the work they have been doing throughout the years to uncover Russian operations in Moldova, especially during the elections over the last 2 years in the country, going undercover, participating in these training camps where Russian operatives have been training professional rioters to just to provoke and then cause polarization on the streets, to uncover how Russian operatives are bribing people to participate in mass protests against the Sandu government on the streets, etc. Moldovan journalists working in really poor conditions, like very often only because they love the work they are doing. They see the idea behind it, not for the money, not for the salary. They have been doing amazing work. Right now we will have elections coming up in Armenia. I know how hard Armenian journalists are working because they have the exact same Russian interference going on in Armenia. We will see how those elections will be going. But also, I would still like to give credit to Western European journalists as well. But I can see the appetite in Western European countries in their media to uncover Russian attempts. There is a lot of interest in France. French journalists, I think, are like super thirsty to work on topics relating to Russian interference. We are working really close with colleagues from Denmark, Danish public broadcaster, for example, or from Scandinavian and the Nordic countries. There is a lot of a lot of desire to continue working, to continue publishing story by story by story. And I think that like maybe they were like a few years behind us, but like over the last few years they have really picked up the pace, and then they are doing amazing work.
Yeah, there used to be a certain naivety in like the 2010s. When and I'm not holding grudges, but I don't know, like 10 years ago, just to explain to Western European journalists the nature of Russian influence was quite hard, because they were coming up with Tolstoy, Gorky, whatever, and we were talking about completely different things. But once their own domestic politics has been affected by Russian-backed far-right parties and sabotage attacks and hybrid attacks and cyber attacks, they also realized what we've been talking about for a very long time.
As the others seem to be other Estonians and people seem to be dealing with more their internal stuff. So I just have one follow-up. As you mentioned, you weren't afraid of your own government physically attacking you, but did you believe that if Russians were to come after you, that your own government would be able to protect you?
Yeah, that's exactly the issue, because part of my investigations in the past few years were about the Hungarian state being unable to protect itself from the Russians, actually being unable to protect, the Hungarian ministry's infrastructure, etc. And in my case, the real threat was that my equipment could be stolen, that it could be compromised. So that was the issue, because as I said, when the Hungarian state is unable to protect itself, then and this Hungarian state is quite hostile towards me, then how could I count on them if there's a need that they would come to my help and protect me against Russian actors. So yeah, that was the biggest concern actually.
Hello, could you give us your appraisal of J.D. Vance's visit to Hungary and what the effect was on the election, if any, beyond the social media memes? And two, could you also address the connection of Orban's Hungary to the MAGA movement through the CPAC conferences and the origins of that?
Right. I mean, there were lots of jokes about, J.D. Vance playing a huge role in Viktor Orban's defeat because he visited him. And, there were even some nasty jokes that once he visited the, former Pope, he died a couple of days later. But no, jokes aside, no one really knows who J.D. Vance is in Hungary. And I think, his name recognition is also quite low everywhere. So it did not play any kind of role, at least positive role for Orban. He was occupied for at least 2 days, escorting J.D. Vance and meeting him, in the final stretch of the campaign. So I think because of that, it was actually counterproductive for Orban. But Viktor Orban has invested a lot of Hungarian public money into supporting the MAGA movement, putting some U.S. pundits on his payroll, etc. And this is how he basically created an image that he's somehow the best friend of Donald Trump among European leaders. But that has always been just propaganda, and it has always been just a sophisticatedly manufactured image. When Viktor Orban lost the election, Donald Trump said that, he was my friend, speaking in past tense, and then Trump went on praising Péter Magyar, that, I heard he's a nice guy. This is how diplomacy works. This is how politics works. You can invest a lot of millions, tens of millions of dollars into, you can pour that money on Trump's friends, but in the end of the day, they just want to make business with whoever is in power. So it didn't matter a lot. Where it can matter still is that we've already seen that Viktor Orban's family, son-in-law, daughter, they relocated to New York, to the United States. And this is what we expect, that if things are getting a bit risky for Orban to stay in Hungary, then it's very likely that he would first try to move to the United States. So in the end of the day, this friendship with the MAGA movement could well pay off for him personally, that he would receive a certain protection, at least as long as Trump is in power.
So I think the official part is now over. Let's get started with the unofficial part, and let's let the journalist uncover more Russians.
And thank you to the actors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all.
Go.